Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Two heavyweight fights have been added to the so-called Rage on the Red Sea, the rematch between Oleksandr Usyk and Anthony Joshua August 20th. No surprise with Hrgovic and Zhang. That is an IBF final eliminator. We'll come to that in a moment. But interestingly, you also have Andrew Tabiti, who has been a cruiserweight until this point, taking on Tyrone Spong. And so there's a couple of interesting things about this. One, it's an 8-rounder. Two, it's the first fight for Andrew Tabiti, pictured here. First fight at heavyweight, but also Tyrone Spong has been out of the ring for 3 years. And part of that out of the ring for 3 years, he was actually meant to fight on a matchroom card against Oleksandr Usyk a couple of years ago, but then failed a drug test. So he vehemently denied it, and you can see this on screen. And he insinuated that Eddie Hearn was somehow involved in the failed test. So with all that history and the slagging off Hearn in public, then he winds up on an Eddie Hearn show. So this is kind of interesting, but Andrew Tabiti, a record of 19-1, 32 years old, former title challenger, challenged Dorticos in 2019. He obviously was part, I believe, of the World Boxing Super Series a few years back at the Cruiserweight tournament, now facing Tyrone Spong in his first fight at heavyweight. And Spong is a guy who, as I say, has been inactive for 3 years, but dimensionally, in terms of the height and the reach, he's more of a match for Andrew Tabiti than some of the other tall timber in the division. Actually, Andrew Tabiti's probably on par with Spong. That 6'2" is a little bit exaggerated for Spong, I think. But 14-0, really never achieved anything as a heavyweight. We know that he's got a storied career in kickboxing, etc. You've probably seen the highlights over the years, but really has done nothing in the heavyweight division. So it's an interesting fight because of the inactivity. What's he got left? Because he's not a young fighter anymore either. So it's going to be interesting to see really what he's got, because we've got no real form of him of late. And that fight there that he had in 2018 at Yotalo Peria, who's an out-and-out journeyman, arguably, he lost that fight. It was certainly way tighter than it should have been for a guy who's got ambitions of fighting at the top level. So this could be good matchmaking for Andrew Tabiti to come in, I mean, it's only an 8-rounder, and put on a display and have a performance at his first fight at heavyweight. Or it could be a situation where Tyrone Spong out of nowhere gets a KO, because remembering, he does have power, and if he lands, it's going to hurt. But interesting fight that's been added to the card. I was not expecting that. And I have seen Andrew Tabiti recently. He's been sparring with the likes of Jeremiah Milton, Guido Vianello, and also Skylar Lacey in Las Vegas. So he's been preparing for this fight and clearly ready for the step up to heavyweight. We will see how this goes. It could be well matched, or this could be at this point with Spong left, what he's got left, we don't know. Maybe it's going to be some sort of mismatch, but we shall see. I'm interested in seeing that fight. But in terms of the fight that's been added to the card, the IBF final eliminator, Filip Hrgovic and Zhang Zhilei. This was previously scheduled, but Filip Hrgovic's father died, so he had to pull out of that. It was a few months ago. And then you had Zhang taking on a late notice opponent in Scott Alexander. And he stopped him pretty brutally and reminded us he's got power. So in terms of the comments from the fighters themselves, you've got Hrgovic saying, "I respect a fighter like Zhilei Zhang, especially as there were plenty of others who could have fought me and didn't. The respect stays outside of the ring, and it'll be business as usual for me when I step in there and look to do what I do best, put people away. There's a huge amount at stake in this fight. I'm a fighter who belongs at the top of this division, and there'll be no doubt about this when Zhang is dealt with and I go on to beat whoever is out of Usyk or Joshua. I'm entering my prime, and now is the perfect time to be putting myself against the top fighters in the division. I will become the heavyweight champion of the world." Couple of things just to weigh in there. So he is working with a new trainer, Ronnie Shields, so it's going to be interesting to see that link up. He had become right hand happy in recent years and not really disguising his power punches, the right hand, right uppercut, right hook, all that sort of stuff, really just trying to bang people out, which at the top end of the division, you've got to have a bit more mystery about your work. So with the Shields link up, we'll see what they can do together. But he does say that he'll get the winner out of Usyk or Joshua. Not necessarily next, because you do have a situation where the three belts, the WBA, IBF and WBO, they're in a rotation. The WBO was last time out, so that's at the back of the queue. IBF was before that, and the WBA belt has not been contested for by the holder for a mandatory since 2018, the Alexander Povetkin mandatory against Anthony Joshua. So we shall see. Robert Helenius is petitioning for that and is threatening legal action to try and get that mandatory slot, given his 2 wins over Adam Kovnatski, which were eliminators. Never announced as final eliminators, but we'll see what happens there. But if he wins, Filip Hrgovic, he's certainly in a better position than most because he will get a guaranteed title shot at some point, and the IBF doesn't generally mess around. Zhang Zhilei says, I'm looking forward to August 20. My team and I have been grinding every hour of every day for this fight. Hrgovic is going to be the toughest opponent in my professional career. A victory will secure me the IBF mandatory challenger position, which is why this fight is so important to me. I will be in the best shape I've ever been in. And it is a step up for Zhang Zhilei. And some people might go, well, Hrgovic, he's a prospect with, a dozen or so, just slightly more fights on his ledger. Hrgovic hasn't necessarily fought at any top level at this point. But just looking at the records and who they've fought, Hrgovic is a dangerous opponent. Zhang is, 38, 39. He's been waiting and watching for an opportunity. He's taken this one when no one else in the IBF rankings would. So this is his moment to prove really who he is to us, the fans, and how far he can go. Remembering, though, that he did have that fight with Jerry Forrest, a year or so ago, started out strong, faded badly, ended up being hospitalized, and apparently wasn't drinking enough water and some other things, so he's made some changes. But what's he got left? Because those older legs, he's approaching 40. Filip Hrgovic is 10 years younger, and he is going to have some advantages over Zhang. But obviously, we've got that reminder from that last fight, that Scott Alexander's stoppage. If he catches Filip Hrgovic, it could be all over. Remembering, Filip Hrgovic has been a bit defensively irresponsible in his career to date, sometimes wearing punches and not being too concerned about it. He can't afford to do that in this fight against Zhang, who is a dangerous puncher. I'm favouring Filip Hrgovic to win this one, but with the one-punch power, despite Zhang being older, being maybe not in the best shape of his career, because obviously he's coming towards the tail end of his career, of his athletic prime, etc., he still could be a handful, so he shouldn't be underestimated. And if Filip Hrgovic does underestimate him, it could be lights out. But in also saying that, you could have Filip Hrgovic stopping him in brutal fashion, the way he likes to fight. But that's going to present opportunities for Zhang. So I like this fight for multiple reasons. You've got the other one, Tyrone Spong, Andrew Tabiti, surprised that's added, and Tabiti moving up, Spong coming back from 3 years inactivity. That's also interesting to me as well. How about you? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.